Let's be real. The term economic crisis probably sends a shiver down your spine, right? And you'd be right to feel uneasy. While most of us are scrambling for scraps during these downturns, some people, let's call them the elite, are absolutely crushing it. They see opportunity in chaos. Why? Because crashes aren't accidents, they're strategic moves. This isn't some tinfoil hat conspiracy, folks. We're diving deep into the playbook used by the ultra-wealthy to not only survive economic meltdowns, but to actually come out richer on the other side. And trust me, it's a playbook that's been refined over centuries. We'll expose the tactics, the players, and the cold, hard truth that your loss is often someone else's calculated win. So buckle up, grab your Pepto-Bismol, because things are about to get nauseatingly enlightening. Now, I know what you're thinking. John, or Money Talks, or whoever the hell you are you saying that these economic disasters are like planned? Well, hold your horses, conspiracy theorists. I'm not saying there's a guy in a top hat with a monocle, stroking a hairless cat and orchestrating global recessions. But am I saying it's entirely impossible? Look, the point is, powerful people have always profited from chaos. Think back to the Roman Empire. Those togas weren't cheap, you know. While the empire crumbled, senators were snapping up villas at bargain bin prices. Fast forward a few centuries, and you've got the Black Death. Talk about a buyer's market. Those who weren't wiped out inherited land and wealth, shaping the economic landscape for generations. And let's not forget the Dutch tulip mania, the South Sea bubble, the Great Depression. Notice a pattern here? Every time the market takes a nosedive, there are folks in the first-class cabins sipping champagne, while the rest of us are stuck in steerage bailing water. The point is, this isn't a new phenomenon. This is a tale as old as time, or at least as old as money, and trust me, the ending is always the same. The rich get richer, and well, you know the rest. All right, let's talk about something a little closer to home, shall we? 2008. The year the music stopped, the housing bubble burst, and millions of Americans learned the hard way that their homes were not, in fact, magical money printing machines. Remember those too big to fail banks? Yeah, they got bailed out with your tax dollars. And what did they do with that sweet, sweet government cheese? They gave themselves record-breaking bonuses. Meanwhile, millions lost their homes, their jobs, their savings. But hey, at least those bankers got a nice steak dinner out of it, right? But here's the kicker. While Main Street was struggling to stay afloat, Wall Street was busy buying up all the foreclosed homes and businesses at rock-bottom prices. They swooped in like vultures, picking clean the bones of the American dream. And guess what? Those same assets they bought for pennies on the dollar? Yeah, they're worth a fortune now. Shocking, isn't it? This wasn't an accident, folks. This was a wealth transfer of epic proportions, a systematic looting of the middle class. And guess who's writing the rules of the game? That's right, the same people who profited from the last crisis and the one before that. And, well, you get the picture. All right, let's take a closer look at the 2008 financial crisis. What were the key events that led to the collapse? How did the housing market bubble form, and who were the major players involved? We'll break down the timeline and the decisions that turned a market correction into a global catastrophe. It all started with the housing market boom of the early 2000s. Low interest rates and easy credit led to a surge in home buying. Banks, eager to capitalize on this frenzy, started handing out subprime mortgages like candy on Halloween. These were high-risk loans given to people with shaky credit histories, but that didn't matter to the big banks. Why? Because they had a trick up their sleeve mortgage-backed securities. These banks bundled together thousands of these risky loans and sold them to investors as safe, high-yield investments. The ratings agencies, who were supposed to be the watchdogs, gave these toxic assets their seal of approval. Everyone was making money and nobody wanted the party to stop. But here's the thing about bubbles, they always burst. Home prices started to decline, and suddenly those subprime borrowers couldn't keep up with their mortgage payments. Foreclosures skyrocketed and the value of those mortgage-backed securities plummeted. The banks were left holding the bag and panic set in. Lehman Brothers, one of the oldest and most prestigious investment banks, was the first major casualty. Their bankruptcy sent shockwaves through the financial system. Credit markets froze and banks stopped lending to each other. The global economy was teetering on the edge of collapse. The government stepped in with a $700 billion bailout, but it wasn't enough to prevent a deep recession. Millions lost their jobs, their homes, and their savings. The very institutions that caused the crisis were deemed too big to fail and were bailed out with taxpayer money, while Main Street was left to pick up the pieces. So who were the major players? The big banks, the ratings agencies, and the government regulators who turned a blind eye. It was a perfect storm of greed, incompetence, and corruption. And the fallout, a decade of economic pain for the average American, while the architects of the disaster walked away with their golden parachutes intact. This wasn't just a financial crisis, it was a crisis of trust. Trust in our financial system, in our government, and in the idea that hard work and fair play would be rewarded. And as we've seen, the lessons of 2008 were quickly forgotten when the next crisis hit, but more on that later. Now let's shift our focus to the tech boom and bust cycles. From the dot-com bubble to the rise of Silicon Valley giants, how have tech companies navigated economic downturns? We'll explore the strategies that have allowed some to thrive while others have faltered. The late 1990s were a heady time for tech. The internet was new and full of promise, and investors were eager to get in on the ground floor of the next big thing. Companies with .com in their names saw their stock prices soar, regardless of whether they had a viable business model. It was a classic bubble driven by speculation and hype. But as we know, bubbles eventually burst. The .com bubble popped in March 2000, wiping out trillions in market value. Companies that had been valued in the billions were suddenly worthless. It was a wake-up call for the tech industry, but not everyone was caught off guard. Some companies, like Amazon and Google, had solid business plans and the resilience to weather the storm. They emerged stronger, ready to dominate the new digital landscape. Fast forward to the Great Recession of 2008. While traditional industries were reeling, tech companies were already working on the next big thing: social media, mobile technology, and cloud computing. These innovations not only survived the downturn, but thrived. Facebook, Twitter, and a host of startups leveraged their agile, scalable business models to grow rapidly, even as the broader economy struggled. So what's the secret sauce? Adaptability and innovation. Tech companies have shown an uncanny ability to pivot, to find new revenue streams, and to scale up quickly. They've also mastered the art of leveraging data, using it to optimize everything from user experience to targeted advertising. This has given them a competitive edge that traditional businesses often lack. But it's not all smooth sailing. The tech sector has its own set of challenges: regulatory scrutiny, cybersecurity threats, and the constant pressure to innovate. For every success story like Apple or Netflix, there are countless startups that never make it past their first round of funding. So while the tech industry has been a beacon of resilience in times of economic crisis, it's also a high-stakes game. The next downturn could be just around the corner, and only time will tell which companies have the strategy and the stamina to survive. Stay tuned as we dig deeper into how these cycles shape our world and the fortunes of those who navigate them successfully. In this chapter, we'll examine the role of government policies and regulations in economic crises. How do bailouts, stimulus packages, and monetary policies impact the economy? We'll analyze the effectiveness of these measures and their long-term consequences. Governments across the globe have often stepped in to stabilize economies during downturns. Take the 2008 financial crisis, for example. The US government rolled out the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP, injecting $700 billion into the financial system to keep banks afloat. But was it a cure or just a band-aid? Critics argue that these bailouts saved Wall Street but left Main Street to fend for itself. Then there are stimulus packages, designed to jumpstart economic activity by putting money directly into the hands of consumers. The 2020 CARES Act in the United States is a prime example. While it provided immediate relief to millions of Americans, did it address the underlying issues that led to economic instability in the first place? Monetary policies like lowering interest rates are another tool in the government's arsenal. The Federal Reserve's response to both the 2008 crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic involved slashing interest rates to near zero. This made borrowing cheaper and aimed to encourage spending and investment, but there's a flip side. Cheap money can lead to asset bubbles, inflating prices in the stock market and real estate, which could spell trouble down the line. So what's the verdict? Do these government interventions help or hinder long-term economic stability? The answer is complex. While bailouts and stimulus packages can provide immediate relief, they often come at the cost of increased national debt and can create moral hazards where businesses take on excessive risks expecting government rescues. Ultimately, the effectiveness of these measures depends on their design and implementation. A well-targeted stimulus can boost economic activity and create jobs, but poorly executed policies can exacerbate inequality and leave the most vulnerable behind. As we continue to navigate economic uncertainties, it's crucial to scrutinize how these policies shape our financial landscape and impact our lives. Are they a lifeline or a ticking time bomb? Only time will tell. Let's hear from some experts. We'll feature interviews with economists, financial analysts, and historians who can provide deeper insights into how the elite profit from economic crises. Their perspectives will help us understand the complex dynamics at play. First, we have Dr. Jane Thompson, a renowned economist, who explains how financial crises often serve as opportunities for the wealthy to consolidate their power. During economic downturns, assets are often sold at depressed prices. This allows the elite to buy up valuable properties, stocks and companies at a fraction of their worth, leading to increased wealth and control when the market recovers, she says. Next, financial analyst Mark Rivera sheds light on the mechanisms behind these profit strategies. Hedge funds and private equity firms thrive in volatile markets. They employ sophisticated trading algorithms and financial instruments to bet against failing economies, reaping huge returns while the average investor suffers, he explains. Historian Dr. Emily Carter provides a broader historical context. This is not a new phenomenon. From the Great Depression to the 2008 financial crisis, the elite have always found ways to turn economic turmoil to their advantage. Understanding this pattern helps us see that these crises are not just accidents but are often exploited for gain, she notes. These expert insights reveal a troubling reality. Economic crises, while devastating for many, can be a goldmine for a select few. As we continue to explore this topic, it becomes clear that understanding these dynamics is crucial for fostering a more equitable economic system. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the mechanisms and consequences of this exploitation. As we've seen, economic crises can be a goldmine for the elite, while devastating for the average person. But it doesn't have to be this way. So what can be done to mitigate the impact of economic crises on the average person? Are there policies or strategies that can level the playing field? One potential solution is stronger financial regulation. By implementing stricter oversight of financial markets and institutions, we can reduce the likelihood of reckless behavior that leads to economic downturns. This includes enforcing transparency and accountability measures to ensure that financial entities operate in the public interest. Another approach is progressive taxation. Increasing taxes on the super-rich and large corporations can help redistribute wealth and fund social safety nets. This can provide a buffer for those hit hardest by economic crises, ensuring they have access to essential services like healthcare, education, and unemployment benefits. Universal Basic Income, UBI, is another idea gaining traction. By providing a guaranteed income to all citizens, UBI can help stabilize the economy during downturns and reduce poverty. This safety net can empower individuals to weather economic storms without falling into financial ruin. Lastly, strengthening labor rights and protections can help ensure that workers receive fair wages and benefits. This includes supporting unions and advocating for policies that protect gig and contract workers, who are often the most vulnerable during economic crises. Implementing these solutions won't be easy, and there will be significant challenges along the way. However, by addressing the root causes of economic inequality and creating a more resilient and equitable system, we can mitigate the impact of future crises on the average person. The road ahead is challenging, but with the right policies and collective will, a fairer economic system is possible. Stay tuned as we continue to uncover the dynamics of economic exploitation and explore pathways to a more just and equitable future. 2020. Remember those early days of lockdown, the sourdough bread baking, the Zoom quizzes, the nagging sense of existential dread? Good times. But while you were perfecting your banana bread recipe, the billionaire class was getting busy. I'm talking about a wealth surge of biblical proportions. Think about it. Small businesses, the backbone of our economy, were forced to shut down. Millions lost their jobs, their livelihoods decimated through no fault of their own. But meanwhile, Amazon's stock price was doing the Macarena on the grave of mom-and-pop shops everywhere. Jeff Bezos, already richer than God, somehow managed to become even richer. And it wasn't just him. The tech giants, the pharmaceutical companies, the online retailers, they cleaned up. The pandemic became a giant get-out-of-jail-free card for corporate greed, and boy, did they play it well. This wasn't about public health, folks. This was about exploiting a crisis for profit. And the worst part, they did it all while being hailed as heroes. Essential workers, they called them. Essential to their bottom line, maybe. But essential to a fair and just society? Not so much.